I'm not going to give you the 5. The reason I'm not going to give you the 5 is my newspaper column at the weekend maybe along something similar. So
okay,
they pay me pretty well, and you're not paying me for this podcast. So I'll just say definitely unreasonable, Shearer. The thing about Roy is Roy gets that wound up by things and loses his head now and again.
Has Neville put you off?
He's put everyone off. Or what Neville's done, Neville's put clubs off pundits. That's what he's done. I'm really proud of Monday Night Football. I think that's a big part of our job now. When we get guests on, Gary's not on every week. So when we get guests on, if the feeling after the show is that they've come across really well, I think that's us doing our job. And again, Monday Night Football doing its job. So I think the biggest thing I'm proud of since I've finished is the shows we've done on Monday night.
Hello, I'm Simon Lillicrap and welcome to The Sportsman. And today I'm delighted to be joined by none other than Jamie Carragher. Jamie, how are you getting on?
Yes, so good. Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure. So today we're going to have a chat about England, about your career, answer some questions our followers have sent in, and then finish with a quick fire round. So let's start with England and let's start with the under-21s. Jamie, you're captain of that team. You made 27 appearances. What do you think is going wrong at the moment for England's under-21s?
Well, I mean, I've listened to some of the things the manager's spoken about, Aidy Boothroyd, and I have a little touch of sympathy because I've been in that position where we had England under 21 squads and we were very strong. I wasn't one of the stars of that group. I wasn't someone who was fast-tracked to the under 21s. That was Michael Owen, Steven Gerrard, Rio Ferdinand, who all, I think, played 1 or 2 games for the under 21s and then moved on. And I did my time with the 21s, played 2 or 3 tournaments. And we always felt when we got to tournaments, sometimes it'd be the same year, the full squad were playing in tournaments and you would lose some of your players. And it was a bit of a blow, so you never felt you were at your strongest. But I do look at the under-21 team right now, and I don't think we expect England to win the European Championships. I think it's almost 40 years since we have. But I think we expect a lot more than what we're seeing right now. But no, I think, if the result doesn't go, we certainly don't qualify. I would imagine there would be a change in terms of the manager. And to be honest, I think international management, it's not easy because you can't buy players, you can't sell players, you can't, do maybe exactly what you want. You're sort of, they're the best players in the country, but it's not the worst place to be if you're coaching the best players, under 21 players in the country. And the results just haven't been good enough. So I would possibly expect there would be a change.
And talking of that change, Jamie, do you think somebody like Frank Lampard or Eddie Howe would be interested in this job with the potential view to succeeding Gareth Southgate as the first team manager?
I don't think Eddie Howe would be, unless he was almost told he would be the next England manager. I think he's got such a really good CV and lots of experience as a manager now. I think Frank's dipped his toe in. And with Frank, it's almost, does he want to have a long managerial career or does he just want to almost pick and choose his jobs? And you actually look at the job of the under-21s, I almost think it would be maybe perfect for someone like Frank Lampard if I think he's just had a newborn baby as well. And it may be the perfect job for him. I think everyone in that squad would look up to him, would be in awe of him. He's still got that youthfulness and that he hasn't retired too long. He could have that connection with young players. And I think if you were a young player, you'd be absolutely over the moon if Frank Lampard was the manager. And that may suit Frank right now. I don't know. He may want to get right back into the thrust of things. But, coming out to Chelsea, it's still a high-profile job. You're coaching and training really top players, young players. And it's not every day. So maybe if he's got things in his life he still wants to do, he can get on with that as well. So I think it'd be a brilliant fit if it was Frank and if obviously Aidy Boothroyd was to lose his job.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there. I think it'd be a really good fit for him. Let's move on to talking about the senior team now and your experiences with England. How different is it from playing club football to going and playing at a World Cup. Could you just talk us through and try and explain the pressure you feel at an international tournament? Obviously a World Cup, we've got the European Championships this summer.
When it's England, all eyes are on England and nothing else. There's nothing else going on. So that's where the extra pressure comes from a media point of view. And I think that is the pressure and how players can deal with that and that scrutiny and get them marked out of 10 or people, talking about their performances, really. So that's only my recollection and experience. But what I would say is I think you can times that by 10, maybe more than what the players are going through right now. Because we didn't have social media then. And you think of, the scrutiny and the stick England players get when things don't go well. And more often than not, we don't go well, or we don't ever do exactly what we want to do, which is win a tournament. So it's not easy. And I've got a great deal of respect for those players who get to the top of their profession or their game. Even players alongside me who are better players than me. You think of Rooney, John Terry, Rio, Stevie, Frank. They were the real big hitters, if you like, in the England teams I played in. And they were the ones who normally got the blame at times if it didn't go well. So you have to stand up to a lot of criticism if you want to be a big England player and get 100 caps. And I think the level of intensity has gone up again now just because of social media.
Could you take us back to the World Cup 2006? If I remember rightly, you came on to take a penalty against Portugal. What was said to you in the build-up to that? Could you take us back to that moment and the drama of the retake and the pressure? Was that the biggest weight of pressure on your shoulders as an England player?
Well, I got asked to come on then with about a few minutes to go. I think it was for Aaron Lennon. And I went right midfield to take a penalty. But I was never told before the game that this was a plan or this was an idea and almost to be ready for it. No one mentioned it. It was just I'd taken a lot of penalties in training and being in the top 5 or 6 players, I think, who had scored so many from penalties. We all took penalties after a training session and we marked who was successful, who missed, basically. And I was in the top 6 or 7. So I was brought on. I'd like to have known that was maybe the plan before the game. But yes, I went up and I'll be honest with you, what I did was I'd taken 2 penalties for Liverpool. And what I'd done is I'd just put the ball down, I'd walked back and had a long run up, I'd just turned and I'd gone to take the penalty. And I almost done the exact same thing. But the referee didn't blow, or hadn't blown by the time I'd taken off. And I'm not sure if the referees had blown in the other 2 penalties I'd taken, if I'm being totally honest. But no, I wouldn't say I felt massive pressure going up. I can't say, and I didn't feel that when I took penalties for Liverpool. One of them was in a cup final. Because I'm not a great believer in pointing the finger at someone if they miss a penalty in a shootout, to be honest. And I'm not saying it doesn't matter, it's a skill. And the better you are at that, the more chance you have to go and going through. So I think it's imperative that you practice and you be as good as you possibly can. Because to win a tournament, you're going to need to win a penalty shootout. But I always feel, from my point of view, the way I look at football is I'd be looking more at the 90 minutes or the 120 minutes and saying, why didn't we win the game? What did we not do enough of rather than look at a penalty shootout? So I think missing the first or score or having to retake the first one, I think that messed with my head a little bit because the goalkeeper then knew where I wanted to go. And it was almost that double bluff. Do you still go that way or do you do the other thing? And I just got caught in 2 minds, to be honest. So that is a big sort of regret. I didn't handle, even though I'm saying it was, I didn't feel the pressure or I wasn't like really nervous in my stomach or thinking about missing. But I obviously didn't deal with the pressure of having to retake a penalty as such, rather than thinking it was England and it was the World Cup. I didn't deal with that situation well enough.
And is that one of your England regrets, or do you have any England regrets when you look back on your England career?
Well, of course. I mean, I wouldn't say I lie awake at night thinking of things that went wrong for England, or I think about that penalty too much. It's not something that really crosses my mind too much. But would I have preferred it to go in? Yes, of course I would. So I suppose it is a regret. I mean, my big regret is that England is the only team in my life that I never dominated or I never established myself in. You know, going from when I first kicked the ball at 5 years of age, from, playing for the school, playing for the county, playing for a local amateur team. I was always the best player. I was, and I got to the stage at Liverpool when I was vice captain. I was seen as one of the top players in my prime there. And England was the only team I never as I said, establish myself fully in. So that's my one regret, really. Now, don't get me wrong. I think the players who did establish themselves were better centre-backs than me in terms of Rio Ferdinand and John Terry. They had the edge on me. I'm not complaining about that, but it's one thing I look back and I just think, as I said, I got to that final stage with England, just couldn't really make myself a player who went on to win 70, 80, 100 caps like some of those players I've mentioned.
And on to today's England team now. How impressed have you been with Gareth Southgate? And for me, the progress we've made under Gareth Southgate, he seems to get a bit of stick online for being a bit too defensive, not being able to beat the big teams. What do you make of him so far?
Listen, everyone gets stick online. I just say don't go online, basically. I think he's done a brilliant job. I really do. I think everyone thought when he came in, it was just to keep everything settled, don't want no drama. Obviously, the last manager had lost his job in unforeseen circumstances. Bring Gareth Southgate in from the under-21s. Everyone can relax. Everyone likes Gareth. He's a nice guy. And let's see how it goes. I don't think anyone expected the results that we've had. I think criticism for his selection or his tactics, that comes with managing England. And right now, I think some of those are a little bit unfair because I think people are seeing the attacking talent we've got in this country, think play them all. You can't play them all. I mean, I think some of the teams I see people pick, whether it's journalists or ex-players, and it's ridiculous. It's embarrassing, actually, when they look at the teams that, play all these players. We've got some great players, but you can't play them all. So, for me, if you're talking about right now, you've got Foden, Grealish, and you've got Mason Mount right now. They're all great players. We want them in the team. But you can't get all three in the team. You can't. I don't care if anyone tells me they can. They can't. So unless it was a really weak opposition. But if you're going to a major tournament, I don't think you can get three of those players in the team. I think you get two of them in. And I think that's the decision for Gareth. Which two does he play out of those three? Because as I said, I think it's really difficult to get the three of them in the team.
Yeah, and you mentioned there Mason Mount. The next question is about him. I think he's been absolutely superb for Chelsea and England so far this year. The progress he's made under Lampard and now Tuchel and now Southgate as well with England. Do you think he's one of those players who potentially should be starting above those other two for England? Is he guaranteed starter nearly?
I think he's not far off. I'm a big fan of Mason Mount. I really am. And I've said two out of those three can play. Maybe that we want to miss out. I don't think Mason Mount will be missing out. Because I think what he's got on the other two is that he's more of a midfield player, I'd say. I class the other two as more of attacking players or more part of the front three. I class Mason Mount as someone who's maybe more part of the midfield three. And I think that'll help him, really. And I think he's a super talent. He really is. I worked with him for a few days with the England under 17s or 18s a few years ago. Steve Cooper was the coach and he asked me to come in, and the FA were doing things at that time where they were trying to get ex-players involved and in different squads. And I was working on Sky, so I couldn't commit too much. But we had a couple of games against Germany, and we lost the first one when Steve Cooper just tried to experiment with something. But we won the next one, which was the official game, if you like. That meant something. And he was the best player. And you knew straight away. He was the one basically from that group, and it's gone from there. And Frank Lampard has to take credit for that as well, for giving him his chance. But all the credit should go to Mason Mount. He's took his chance
for sure. And let's move on to the centre backs now. Your position, obviously, Maguire and Stones look like they're in pole position to kind of start at the Euros. Seems like a pretty solid partnership. Would Jamie Carragher at his peak make this England squad? Would Jamie Carragher at his peak make the starting 11?
I'd make the squad. Would I make the team? I think it'd be a tough one. I think it'd be tough. I think Harry Maguire's a different type of centre-back to me. He's the dominant centre-back. I was never that because I'm just not tall enough. So when I played, it was Sammy Hyypiä alongside me at Liverpool, or John Terry was that figure. I was almost the second centre-back, if you like. I'm only just under 6 foot. So I could never be Harry Maguire, if you like. Now, John Stones is a different player to me. He's better on the ball. I think I'm a better defender. So it depends what the manager would like. Maybe in this day and age, with playing from the back a lot more than maybe in the past, maybe John Stones would just get the nod.
I think you definitely make the squad, that's for sure. And one of your famous quotes, obviously, from Sky Sports is, "Nobody grows up wanting to be a Gary Neville." Now, England have now got the likes of Reece James, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Trippier, Wan-Bissaka, Matty Cash, Max Aarons, Lamptey at Brighton as well. What's changed, Jamie? Why has everyone grown up wanting to be a Gary Neville?
Well, I mean, I'd be interested to know if those players started as fullbacks, and that was my point at the time, that not many people start as a fullback. I think a lot of those players you mentioned, or anyone who goes on to be a professional footballer, more often than not, they're the best player in the team. At school, amateur, county, wherever it may be. And more often than not, the best player plays central midfield or centre forward. And that was the same with me. I ended up at centre back, and I'm sure a lot of those players were attacking players when they were younger, and they've ended up at fullback now. But what I would say is about playing fullback, and when I first went there, I'd never played there before until I was about 21, 22. And Gerrard put me there. And what you do find at fullback is you get a lot of the ball. Now, when you play football, no matter what position you're in, you want to be on the ball, you want to play, you want to get on the ball and be involved. And that's something I found, really. So when you're in midfield, you always think, oh, I'll be more involved and get on the ball. But I think fullbacks possibly get more touch to the ball than anyone. And because you're always the spare man, you're always the free man. If someone's in a bit of trouble, right, play the fullback. He's always got a little bit of time. Things are in front of you. And I actually love playing fullback. I played that for 4 or 5 years for Liverpool. And it's a lot of those players that you've mentioned there, certainly I know that with Trent, he was certainly a midfield player when he was coming through. And I think that's what he'd love about playing fullback. He gets so much of the ball, and then he shows his passing qualities. I think Matty Cash is another one. I'm not sure he would have started as a fullback, but he looks a lovely footballer getting forward as well. And a lot of players you mentioned, even Wan-Bissaka, who's more of a defender. I think he was actually a right winger coming through at Crystal Palace. So I can guarantee you, nobody wants to grow up and be a Gary Neville.
Talking of Gary, your mate Gary Neville, we've mentioned you in the England squad. We've mentioned you in this England squad. Would Gary Neville get into this England squad with this array of right backs we've got now?
Yes, Gary would get in it. No, I have no doubt about that. He'd get in the squad, and he'd be battling with.
Which one are you going to pick?
No, but I'm just thinking of you think of sort of Trent and what he's done in the last few years. He's almost a different type of fullback, really, but he's not in the squad, is he, right now? But you look at sort of Reece James. I mean, right now, Gary Neville will be playing for England, no doubt. But I do think I think eventually Trent will find himself back in the squad, and Reece James, I think that's going to be a real battle over the next sort of 5 to 10 years in terms of England right backs, really. But in terms of someone like Trent Alexander-Arnold, he's almost like a different player. He's like a midfield player playing fullback, basically. So maybe some of the others have extra capabilities defending-wise, although I think Trent's actually improving on that. But in terms of passing range and what he brings to Liverpool from that position, he's almost like he's not reinvented it, because I'm not sure many players could do that. But basically, for the last 2 or 3 years, Liverpool have been one of the best teams in the world. And the most creative player in that team has been the right back. So that probably sums up, the impact he's had in terms of maybe changing the role of that fullback.
For sure, you never would have used to see that, would you? So finally, let's finish off with our England chat with how far do you think England can go, and how far will they go at the Euros this summer?
I mean, a lot depends on where they finish in the group, and I think I've been told that it's better to finish second, is it?
It might be. That's what we had in the World Cup, wasn't it, as well? It was better.
Yes, so I think Gareth was brilliant in the World Cup, I really do, where we played a shadow team, basically, in the game against Belgium, lost the game, and everyone was talking about, should you try and win the game? Should you play your best team? Listen, all this nonsense that people talk about, you've got to play the best teams to win it. No, you don't. England got to a semi-final with a very easy run in that World Cup. So if you can make it where you have an easier run, you've got more chance of winning it. So I think if Gareth can play or box clever and maybe make us finish second, that may make it a lot easier. I think if we finish second in the group, I think we'll get the final.
Brave call.
I think if we finish top of the group, we could be going on quite early.
I would love a Wembley final. Hopefully there'll be fans in as well. That would be something special, wouldn't it? So let's move on from England now, thanks for that England chat, to your career and the Premier League. Now, one of your fellow pundits, Mika Richards, recently claimed that Man United came in for him 3 times when he was a player. Were you ever, tempted to join another club? Were you ever approached by another club? And why didn't you move from Liverpool?
No, I was never involved in a transfer saga or anybody contacting me. Whether they contacted the club to ask about my situation, I'm not sure. But I don't think anyone ever put a bid in for me.
How much would the bid have been?
Oh, God knows. What were the transfer fees then? I don't know. Anything. Rio went for 30, didn't he? What would that have been? About 2002. So what would I have been? About 10? 10, 12?
I think you'd have been a bit more than that.
Maybe half. Okay, let's go for half. And I don't think I was a player who was better than Liverpool. Now, the only thing that was better than Liverpool, I think, was Real Madrid or Barcelona. And a lot of our players did make that move, really. But I was never good enough to make that move. But I was good enough to play for Liverpool week in, week out for, 17 years. And I think no one was going to come in who were a lesser club than Liverpool, because why would I move? So I think I was almost one of those players who there was no point making a bid for me or trying to get me, because, as I said, I don't think I wasn't that level of the Spanish giants or whoever that may be. And I was never going to leave Liverpool, was I, for anyone lesser than Liverpool? So I think it was almost a perfect fit, really. And I don't think I'd have ever moved, if I'm being totally honest. I loved playing for Liverpool. I love the fact I'm a one-club man. I'm really proud of that. Not many people can say that in the careers, especially playing for a big club like Liverpool. So I wanted to do that. And I can hand on heart, if one of those Spanish giants had ever come for me, I wouldn't have gone. So I wouldn't have left Liverpool. Certainly for no one in England and no one in Europe. I had everything I wanted at Liverpool. Winning trophies, we were in the Champions League, we were competing. We didn't win the Premier League, we know that, but it certainly wasn't for a want of trying.
So no regrets on not playing abroad at all?
Oh no! I love the fact I played for one club, and that club was Liverpool.
Brilliant. And your role at Sky at the moment, obviously quite busy, and you mentioned you did a bit of coaching with England's youth teams and youth setup. Have you ever considered hanging up your tie in the studio to become a manager or a coach? Has Neville put you off?
I think he's put everyone off. Or what Neville's done, Neville's put clubs off pundits. That's what he's done. But no, I've never thought twice about it since I've joined Sky. I've thought a lot about it towards the end of my career, but not since I joined Sky. No, I think I made that decision. I think once you make that decision, what you want to go into, I think it's very difficult. As Gary showed, I think he'll hold his hands up to that himself. You're going into something that you haven't got the experience for, because we're gaining experience in TV. And, other people are learning on the job and doing youth jobs, and eventually get that big job that, Gary got, which was a huge job. Valencia's a huge club. And he possibly hadn't put the work in beforehand, not because he's lazy, because he'd chosen a different path in terms of TV. And that's what I've done. So I wouldn't, if I got offered a job tomorrow to manage a club, I wouldn't go near it, because I wouldn't be ready for it. I wouldn't be good enough. And I chose my path. But when I say I chose my path was chosen for me in some ways, in that I was offered a couple of roles and I said yes to, and then they fell through. And then Sky was there. And I said, oh, fantastic, Monday Night Football, we can really get into the tactic side of the game and go really deep into it and analyse it. I thought, perfect. So threw all my eggs into that basket, and it's gone okay.
What roles, what kind of level were those roles at? Were they manager jobs?
No, they were roles at Liverpool. They were roles with just before Kenny Dalglish went. I asked, could I shadow him? Not so much a coaching role, I suppose, but almost be a link between the players and the manager and the staff, and laying off them. I had 1 year to go on my contract. I knew I was retiring, so could I shadow Kenny and be involved in meetings and almost just get a feel for what it was like on a day-to-day basis coaching. Kenny lost his job. And then Brendan Rodgers came in and asked me if I wanted to be on his coaching staff for my last year of my contract, like a player coach. And I said yes. And then Brendan just changed his mind on that, which is fine. I had no problem with that at all. But I suppose if one of those things would have fell my way, if that, maybe I'd have then gone, okay, I've got the bug for this. My life will go that way and see where it goes. But it never quite happened. And then Sky came for me with about 6 months left on my Liverpool contract, and I said yes, basically, and it's gone from there.
Absolutely perfect. Good decision. I think we've all enjoyed watching you on our screens. One of your teammates, obviously, who has gone into management, done a brilliant job, Steven Gerrard at Rangers, winning the title. Do you think he should be the next Liverpool manager once Jurgen's hung up his managerial pen?
I'd love to see him Liverpool manager one day. I think everyone at the club would love that, but we'd all want that when Steven was fully equipped and fully ready, because we want him to be successful, obviously. So that's not to say he shouldn't be the next manager, but I think management is all about timing. And if Jurgen Klopp was leaving tomorrow and Stevie's won the league, it'd almost just feel like a natural progression. Now, Jurgen Klopp in 2 years' time, maybe Celtic have come back at Rangers and they didn't win the league. And then, even though Stevie's still the same manager, probably an even better manager in 2 years' time with more experience, it'll be like, yeah, but Celtic won the league, didn't he? Or what about some? That's just the way we think in football. And I don't think it should be just a shoe-in for Stevie, that because he played for Liverpool, he should get the job. He should get the job because he's a really good manager. And right now, he's proven to be a really good manager. And I hope that continues. And then it'll be like, yeah, Stevie Gerrard should be the manager, not because of the legendary player, because he's a top manager. And the signs right now are looking like he is going to be a top manager. It's not just winning the league. His record in Europe is out of this world, and that's going back since he joined Rangers in the first couple of years, even when Celtic were winning titles. So he's building up great experience. He's with a big club. There's pressure. There's European football. He's involved in cup finals, going for titles. So all the things that you'd want a manager to do in preparation for the Liverpool job, Stevie's doing right now. So he keeps ticking those boxes. He's in the mix. But I don't think it should be a case of it's definitely Steven Gerrard. There should be 3 or 4 candidates going for that job, as with any big job. I'm sure Stevie will be part of that. And if he's the best man for the job out of those candidates, absolutely.
I suppose it's easy to say in hindsight, but as a player, when you were playing and training with him week in, week out, did you always think, yeah, he's going to be a manager, he's going to be a top manager?
No, because I don't mean no, I didn't think he would be a top manager. What I mean is I think it wasn't where you look at players, not just Stevie, because Harry Kewell was a manager. And if you just said to me, Harry Kewell would be a manager, you think, no. And it's funny because it almost feels to me now, certain people who you think would be managers, and I think me and Gary Neville are two, who are like, very loud on the pitch, or to organising people, you always automatically think those type of players will be managers. I almost think it's different now, where it's almost, I wouldn't say people who think about the game more, because I think about it a lot as well, but maybe not as emotional maybe as I was, or, screaming and shouting on the pitch. We always think of what we think as a manager. But Stevie was always a deep thinker about the game. He was an emotional player. I think he's like that as a manager. I think that's a good thing if it's harnessed correctly, which I think it is with Stevie. But everything Stevie's done has been out of this world in terms of, player, captain his country, 100 caps. There's nothing he hasn't done at club level. And he's taken that into his first job as a manager as well. So sometimes there's just something about certain people that's pretty special. No matter what they put their hand to, it proves successful. And Stevie, at this moment, having done it as a player, now starting to do it as a manager, it looks like he could be one of those. So, as I said, it's very difficult to say, yes, 100% he will be a manager. Because I think a lot of people fall into management as well, because you get to the end of your career and you think, what am I going to do? And I think Stevie, credit to him, he didn't go straight into a job. He went to Liverpool's academy, dealt with the younger players, improved himself as a coach and in dealing with people, and then took a really brave decision to go to Rangers. So I thought he'd have a go somewhere, but as I said, he's proven to be a great success in his early stages.
Yeah, he's done an absolutely brilliant job. Obviously, Gary Neville's got his ownership of Salford, seeing them move through the leagues, doing quite well. Have you ever thought of doing something similar in terms of owning a football club?
No, I haven't. No, I've given a little bit of money to local clubs that around here. So I help Marine now and again. I help Biddle Football Club from the place I was from. But I haven't got another 4 or 5 millionaires with me and a billionaire called Peter Lim to invest in these clubs. So he's got a little bit of an advantage on me. But no, to be honest, I think, listen, what I would say is I think what they've done at Salford's amazing. It really is, local lads getting together, getting the club in the Football League, going through, being successful, winning cups, going to Wembley. It's amazing what they've done for that football club. But he's a little bit trigger happy at the moment, as our Gary, isn't he? In terms of managers. So I think he's on number 3 this season. So I'm sure that's something that will come up on the next Monday Night Football.
It was a bit of a shock, that latest sacking, wasn't it? Back to your playing career. What is your favourite game of all time that you didn't play in? And, or maybe even on the back of that question, the game you wished you had played in?
So you're talking about maybe I was injured for the game, or...
No, maybe just a game that's happened in history, or a Liverpool game, or any game you wish you'd been a part of.
I tell you what, the first one that springs to mind is the Chelsea game when Liverpool, lost the league, if you like. And the reason I say that, not because I think I wanted to be there as a defender to stop Demba Ba scoring after, obviously, Stevie losing the ball. It's not that. I always look at the second half of that game. And I've been in that position so often at Anfield, where you need a goal, basically. And I think I could have brought something to that game, not in terms of scoring or creating a goal, but I think my experience of those situations, I could have helped and kept talking to players, because people always look at that game and look at the big incidents, but I think the most disappointing thing in that game was Liverpool's second half performance. I mean, at half-time, they were losing 1-0. They only needed to draw the game, really. And they were attacking the clock. Chelsea's team was really weak. Jose made lots of changes. And it was a time not to panic. And I just felt Liverpool in the second half became very anxious. And that's where I felt I could have helped on the pitch in that game. Just speaking to people, relaxing people. Even with 10 minutes to go, it's a long time in football, certainly attacking the cop end. And just keep making passes. Because what Liverpool did in that game is they kept shooting from silly positions and just snatching at things. And that was the biggest disappointment for me in that game. I'd love to have been on the pitch in there, almost managing the game or managing the team, not by being this, great defender. I was 35. I certainly wasn't at my best, but just to I think I could have helped and brought something in that second half.
I remember Gerrard in that second half just seemed desperate to make up for that error, shooting from range. I think he was trying to do everything in some way.
Yeah, because I think we all became too emotional. I think we wanted it too much, even the crowd. Obviously, Stevie wanted to make up. I think Luis Suarez was the same. And it wasn't Liverpool how they played that season. I think it was just a panic of setting in that this holy grail was slipping through the hands. And that's just one game that springs to mind where I think, I'd love to be on the pitch to try and help. And I think I could have brought something in that situation.
Question for your punditry role here. So Darren Brent recently has named Henry, Shearer, Wright, Drogba and Rooney as his 5 favourite Premier League strikers of all time. I want to ask you who you think the top 5 Premier League strikers are of all time in order. And I like to say, surely number 1 has to be Alan Shearer.
No, number 1 is not Alan Shearer. Number 1 is Thierry Henry. Thierry Henry is the best player to ever play in the Premier League. So when I see this debate, that's not even a debate. Thierry Henry is the best striker to ever play in the Premier League. And as I said, it's not even a debate. I'm not going to give you the 5. The reason I'm not going to give you the 5 is my newspaper column at the weekend maybe along something similar. So
okay,
they pay me pretty well, and you're not paying me for this podcast. So I'll just say definitely unreasonable Shearer. That's as far as I'll go.
Okay, that's fair enough. And then a bit of a random question. If you had to be stranded on a desert island for the rest of your life with either Mika Richards, Gary Neville or Roy Keane, who would it be and why?
It wouldn't be Gary Neville, because you'd end up giving him a smack. He'd be complaining about that much. Mika Richards' laugh and just general persona. But I just don't know if that laugh will get to you in the end. But he'd keep you going. The thing about Roy is, Roy gets that wound up by things and loses his head now and again. But I find those people really funny. And I enjoy being in those type of people's company, because I love it when someone's more wound up about something than me. And And I think Roy would actually make me laugh.
I think Roy might find a solution, I think if I was on with anyone, I think Roy Keane might be able to, build a shelter, build a raft.
No, if anyone could find a solution, it'd be Gary Neville. It would be Gary. Gary is involved in everything and anything. And, I've ruled Gary out very early there, didn't I?
Now you're saying he might save your life?
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. You know what, basically, if you're on a desert island for the rest of your life, you don't basically want to be there for the rest of your life, do you?
No.
So who's got more chance of getting us out of that? Gary Neville would, because he'd find a way. He's one of those people where he's mad. And good mad, I'd say. So I'll go for Gary Neville. We can have a few good... Yeah, I'll go for Gary Neville. I shouldn't have ruled him out. He makes me laugh. I love arguing with him. And I think there's more chance of him getting me off there than anyone else in terms of coming up with a plan.
So you might not work. Changed your mind.
I've changed my mind, yeah. I shouldn't have been so dismissive of me, my big mate. So I'll go for Gary Neville.
Brilliant stuff. And now we've got some questions from our followers on Twitter. So, Jamie, you can't have a go at me for these questions because they're not from me. First up, from Adam Lockett. I like this one. If you could replay your career all over again with exactly the same honours you have received at Liverpool, would you choose to do it with Liverpool or your childhood club, Everton?
Yeah, but when's he asking me this question? When I'm a kid or when I'm now?
Yeah, so when you were a kid, kind of if you could replay it all over again. So if you pick Everton, you would have never joined Liverpool, but you'd have won all what you won with Everton.
I suppose as a kid, I wanted to play for Everton, didn't I? I was an Everton fan. But if you're asking me right now, so I suppose the answer is both, really. As a young kid, I'd love to have done that with Everton because I was an Everton fan. But if you're asking me right now, no, I wouldn't change anything about my career. I love the fact that, I played for Liverpool and and we did what we did, and the supporters and the memories I've got. I couldn't change that for the world, but it may have been a different answer if you're asked a 7-year-old James Carragher, shall we say. So no, I wouldn't change it, no.
Perfect. Next up from Harry Eubank, he's asked, what has been your favourite venture since retiring from football?
A venture, is that a business?
It could be a business thing. It could be anything you've done since retiring from the game. What's been one of your favourite things? Obviously, you're at Sky at the moment. That's quite a big part of it.
I love Monday Night Football. I absolutely adore it. I think it's the best football show on TV, and that's not because of me. I just think the concept of it, there being a live game, looking back at the weekend's action, but not being match of the day, not showing every goal, looking at incidents and going a lot deeper into the tactical side of it. And that almost, I get a little buzz, before we're going on here. It's a 4-hour show, it's a long show. It takes a lot of concentration. You feel like you've got a hangover on the Tuesday after the show because there's that much stuff in your head you're trying to remember. And I'm really proud of the show. As I said, someone in the future will do the show. I won't in the future. Someone, that's just maybe a natural progression, or maybe they want me to keep doing it. I don't know. But I'm really proud of Monday Night Football, about what the show is, the work that gets put into it. And that's the big thing where it almost takes me back to being a player, where I get that feeling of, a little bit of nerves and excitement before the show starts. And I'm really at the end of the show think, did the show go well? Was it good? Did we make the guests feel comfortable? Did the guests come across well? Because I think that's a big part of our job now. When we get guests on, Gary's not on every week. So when we get guests on, if the feeling after the show is that they've come across really well, I think that's us doing our job. And again, Monday Night Football doing its job. So I think the biggest thing I'm proud of since I've finished is the shows we've done on Monday night.
I think the one with Rafa Benitez, I think everyone loved that when you were on with him. That was brilliant insight. How long can you see yourself doing it for?
As long as they want me, I suppose. I've ruled myself out to coaching and managing, but I think my role now in football will be TV and will be in the media and will be giving opinions in newspapers. And, that's the way it is. I've been doing it now for, I don't know, 8 years now. I retired in 2013, so 8 to 9, so not far off 10 years, basically. And, I suppose when you have better people out there, or maybe more current, or whatever it may be, I'll keep going.
Mm-hmm.
As long as the public want me.
We'll always want you, I think. Monday Night Football never gets old with you and Gary. I think it's absolutely brilliant. Next question comes in from Matt. You'll never walk alone. Who is the best player you played alongside or against based on pure ability?
Well, the two best players are Steven Gerrard, I played with, and Thierry Henry, who I played against. In terms of pure ability, what does that mean? It's not like real skills?
Yeah, I think skill, potentially, yeah.
Pure skill. I mean, Yari Littman and company, he was pretty, he was a really good, it's got to be Luis Suarez, I forgot about him. I mean, in terms of pure skill and dribbling past people and nutmegging people, it's got to be Luis Suarez. And against, I think it has to be Zola, because every year I get sent this clip by Chelsea fans on it was his last game at Chelsea, and he basically he gave me twisted blood basically in the corner flag at Stamford Bridge. So I get sent that every year. So I suppose I'll have to go for Zola. But I should add, it was the last minute of the game, so we were trying to get the ball back because we needed the goal. So we were diving in, and the ball went out for a goal kick. So it wasn't like a goal come from it. So I need to start fighting my own corner on this clip, actually. I've let it go for too long because nothing actually come for it. So what was the point? except for a good meme, is it, or a good clip on social.
Start replying to those tweets. Have you ever had a player sign for Liverpool who you weren't too sure about and then they've instantly joined and you've been like, wow, they are some player?
I mean, I wouldn't say you've had doubts about. There's times when you buy someone and you don't really know too much about them. You know, Xabi Alonso came in and I knew of him, I'd heard of him, I hadn't watched him play too much. He played for Real Sociedad. They'd come very close to winning La Liga one season. And he comes, so he wasn't sort of established in the Spanish team at that time. He wasn't playing for Madrid or Barcelona. And he come in, but straight away you knew he was a top player. You think, oh, we've got a good player here. You can just see it in the first training session, the way he passed the ball, the pace he put on his passes, you knew straight away. So I wouldn't say there's players that you bought really you're not quite sure of as such. You may not know too much about them, and then they surprise you because you think, wow, how's this fella not, how do we not know more about him, if you like. So I'd probably describe it more like that. Now, we've had plenty of players that we thought was going to be really good and hasn't quite happened for them. That's the opposite, but I wouldn't say there's been too much the other way.
Okay. And final question from the public. All Do the Huddle tweeted in saying, why the long sleeves? Why did you wear long sleeves throughout your career?
I had an Everton tattoo, didn't you know?
You can show it us now. Finally.
Well, basically, there's my arms anyway. Is that the evidence? I mean, I just wore long sleeves. I thought I looked better in long sleeves. So everyone was aware that I was a big Everton fan as a kid. So as you may not know, but in Liverpool, it's a small city and rumours can run like wildfire. So basically, Jamie Carragher's got an Everton tattoo. That's why he wears long sleeves. So that was one for a while, really. But no, that was just, I thought I looked better. Whether I did or not, I'm not sure.
It was a good style for you. I think it worked all right. Luckily, there's no Everton tattoo. We can now reveal. So we're going to finish today, Jamie, with a quick fire round, 10 questions, this or that. Answer as quickly as you can. Don't have to think about it too much. So let's crack straight into it. First one, Old Trafford or the Etihad?
Old Trafford.
Header or volley?
Volley.
Own goal or red card?
Red card.
Player or pundit?
Player.
Would rather win the World Cup, win the Champions League?
If the Champions League was at Liverpool, win the Champions League.
VAR or no VAR?
Oh, no VAR.
Suarez or Torres?
Suarez.
Klopp or Benitez?
Klopp.
Messi or Ronaldo?
Messi.
Neville or Keane?
Oh, Keane.
You just said that one to annoy Neville, have you?
Oh, yes.
So thanks very much, Jamie. You've answered all our questions. It's been a really pleasure to speak to you today on The Sportsman, and we will catch you next time for the next interview we do.